So Lagosians returned from a 2-day public holiday meant for Eid al-Fitr celebrations, refreshed, rested, and some still smelling of jollof rice and grilled chicken, barbecue ram, and of course, asun. And then boom, slammed straight into what can only be described as the 10th circle of Dante's Hell, renamed Independence Bridge. Wednesday morning, dear viewers, was not just a traffic gridlock. It was a full-blown, God-forsaking insult to oxygen-consuming humans' chaotic standstill. I mean, it was pack your bag, set up a rent, or better yet, apply for rent on Ozumba Mbadiwe kind of madness. And the cause? Repair works on the Independence Bridge. Because, of course, what better time to shut down a major traffic artery in Africa's most congested city than on the very first day of full resumption after a national holiday? And you can't make this stuff up. The whole thing was a masterclass in poor planning, zero empathy, and maximum tears. Or better yet, premium shege. Now wait for it. After subjecting people to 12 plus hours in traffic, yes, 12 hours, the Lagos State government finally spoke. And what did they say? You ask. Did they say, we're sorry for how deeply we mismanaged this? Did they say, heads will roll? Heads will be on the chopping blocks? No, my friends. What we got was His Excellency Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu apologizing for the inconvenience. Like no one accidentally, like, you know, just like when you're at an Owambe party and somebody accidentally stepped on your agbada or even on your feet as you are, sorry. Inconvenience, not a crisis in motion, not a systemic failure, just inconvenience. So let me tell you what happened to Lagosians that day so you can get a sense of it if you're tuning in from outside Lagos, although our Lagos is notorious for its traffic. Some people left home at 6 a.m. and didn't return until the following morning, but they never actually arrived at their destination. They went out, tried to turn back, and got stuck. Students missed school, businesses lost revenue, health emergencies, now that's a question, all right? I'll let you decide. And people fought with agberos, their Uber drivers, and even their own shadows. And not to forget our Gen Zs creating their TikTok videos. Lao, and God bless them as well, because some of them just gave up and they slept in their cars. Meanwhile, the government was apparently caught off guard. Yes, the same government, you ask me, the same government that actually scheduled public holidays, approved construction permits, and has a commissioner for planning. A commissioner for planning. It's the name. That's the job title. Look, let's be honest. This wasn't just about road repairs. It was an expose on a government that is completely out of touch with the people it claims to serve. How can you govern a city when you clearly do not understand or care how it breathes, moves, or even survives? Was there a traffic management strategy? Did they inform transport unions? Did they consider the psychological toll on citizens coming out of Eid festivities? The short answer is no, but the long answer, not even a little bit. Instead, the federal government and the Ministry of Works toss responsibility like a bad baton, handover in a rally race. You know that girl that hit the other friend in the head? Moving on. And then, just like magic, the bridge was reopened on Friday, but not without a plot twist. Traffic would now be restricted to half a carriageway, a reward perhaps for our patience. You answer. Look, the truth is, it's not just infrastructure repairs. I mean, we all like bridges. Look at it, boy. When we can actually use them, actually. But this was avoidable. And most importantly, this was shameful and disrespectful. Because when a government fails to consider the lives and experiences of its people, when it shows no urgency in the face of public suffering, when it treats governance like a spectator sport, what you get is chaos on wheels. So, dear Lagos State government, if you are watching, Lagosians are not asking for flying cars. And frankly, we're not even asking for food. We're just asking that you do your job with competence, with foresight, and just a sprinkle of common sense. Good morning. And I just have to say, is that too much to ask? Do you want to give it a thought? Is that too much to ask?
Judith, I am absolutely jealous that you got to do the monologue for today because trust me, I had more than enough to go on the Lagos situation.
Oh, you can give it a go tomorrow.
I will try, but I will tell you something. If Rivers State is akin to state of emergency, Lagos State on Wednesday was state of anarchy.
Hey, yeah.
It was mad. But hey, the Gen Zs, they took the advantage, and I love the TikTok videos, love the Instagram posts and the stories. It was, we always find a way out. Just to make fun.
Intercontinental, now good day.
And what was that with the lady who was jumping in the driver's seat with the driver?
I have no clue.
I want to know that story. We should search her out. We have to get her side of the story. In fact, both sides. I want to know if anybody's out there that knows what happened, please point us in the right direction. I hear she was fighting for change, but inside of that kind of situation, what do you want to use the change for?
Pure water and gala.
Then there is that.
There we go.
Good one. I love the Judith. Loved it. Absolutely. It was grand.
Oh, well, there you go. Join us as we get started for Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-conforming gendered individuals, welcome.
So, good morning. First of all, welcome once again to your favorite weekend breakfast show, Breakfast Extra, where the stories that matter meet the conversations that move us forward, except in Lagos. But this is not the monologue. We have a powerfully packed lineup for you guys today. We begin with a pressing national concern in our big story segment, Herdsmen and Farmers conflict, addressing the growing threat to Nigeria's stability. And from shocking attacks to long-standing grievances, we unpack the rising tensions with our correspondents in Kano and Rivers State. And we speak with a senior security analyst and what must be done to stop the violence and secure lasting peace. Then we turn our lens abroad to the UK, where over 58 Nigerians risk losing unclaimed estates due to lack of wills and traceable families. Now, it's a story that raises questions around legacy, documentation, and also diaspora identity, which some people always used to use football age and stuff like that. Lost legacies, what can I say? We'll be joined by local journalists and international reporters and also chairman of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. Well, we're still checking on that one. And, of course, in honor of World Autism Awareness Day, we shine a spotlight on neurodiversity. Now, this is a very difficult word. Neurodiversity. It's easy. And also, let's talk inclusion. Our wellness segment, Advancing Neurodiversity and Breaking Stereotypes, features an incredible parent advocate and also founder of Haven for Autism, alongside her 16-year-old son, an inspiring nonverbal artist. We'll also speak with an early intervention specialist who will help us understand how early support changes lives. We've got so much inside of today's show, and I'm hoping that you guys can stay all 3 hours to experience, well, what we all packed up for you. So stay tuned. But last week was very interesting on the dailies, and the strips from last week were so exciting. However, we didn't bring them to you, and we had plenty of people send us in messages. Why didn't we get the strips? We heard you. We apologize. We'll do it at the start of the show here today. So, ladies and gentlemen, because of your demands, let's bring you the strips we left out. They're very interesting because they're very relative. Let's start with our very first one for today from the past show we didn't bring to you. Now, check this out. Does this look familiar? Oh, no. Maybe in the year 2037, or 30 to be specific. Democracy is now a dinosaur. If you look down there at the bottom, Nigerian dinosaur T-Rex 1999 to 2025. That would be democracy, by the way. Judith, do you have anything to say about this very interesting art piece that we had from the papers or dailies for last week?
There's only one thing. I like that the tailbone of the dinosaur is a fish bone. Just love it.
The details you find, I don't know how
I know, yeah, I'm a lover of art.
Is there anything I missed out? Anything at all I missed out, please? Anything? In any case,
not at all, no.
This is what our kids are going to be looking at very soon. Because democracy seems to be dying, as many people argue. We no longer see the tenets that actually made us proud to be Nigerians, freedom of speech, freedom of association. I hear that Wiki can no longer enter into Bayelsa State. I don't know if you've heard that one. We're going to be talking about that soon on the Breakfast Show. If not today, then tomorrow. But very interesting twists and turns to the democratic landscape in Nigeria currently. And we hope that we can keep it alive, at least keep it alive until 2030.
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, until 2030, 2027, I'm not sure.
I'm counting extra because some people have already made up their mind that they're in this for,
There you go. You already said it all. Said it all, my friend.
Let's move on to our very next one, guys. Let's see what we have for our next strip. Now, apart from the T-Rex dinosaur like Nigerian democracy, let's do another one, guys. Another one. There we go. Enough said. Let's move on. No, let's not. But enough said because this depiction of a very, popular...
Is that Alphaba?
Who?
Alphaba.
Alphaba. Is that Alphaba?
Alphaba is the character in Wicked.
Oh!
She's the one who has the hat on and who flies on a broom at the end.
Now I see what he was trying to do, but we all know that is not Alphaba.
I know I can defy gravity.
Judith, don't.
You won't bring me down, 'cause I'm going to cause chaos. I'm sorry.
I will only come back if you stop.
I stopped.
Thank you very much. In any case, we all know what people's reservations have been regarding Wike, and last week was no exception. Even a week from before, he was all over the place. I don't know if that umbrella can still hold out water, but this is the situation where everybody is thinking, hey folks, we promise more confusion and drama come 2027. Who's at the center of all the drama? And people would say, in quote, confusion. Lately, one man, the catalyst, remains untouched. No matter where he steps into and steps out, he still remains himself, while everything else, drama.
Alphaba.
Let's leave it at that. I think it's safe to
That's safe to use. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for saving me. Let's enough said now. Let's move on to our next strip, okay? We still got some very interesting ones that you guys are going to see. Something happened a couple of weeks ago that I'm going to bring in very soon. But please, help. We're hungry. And the Nigerian situation, don't worry. As always, just vote me back in next time. But wasn't this what we heard the first time? Is this what the recurring, what's it called, is going to be? I don't know. But we are in a state of emergency. Sounds familiar? Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are hungry. Nigerians need food. But we're going to give you tickets to a football show soon. Just wait. We'll show you. Even if we kind of like drew in that match. But of course, you all know who it's trying to depict, and the broom in hand will definitely tell you exactly who it is. All you need to do is take a look at the hat. I'm not allowed to say specifically, but the artist has given you
self-explanatory.
An idea of who it is.
It's very self-explanatory.
What can I say? Anything to say, Judith?
I know. I've said it. It's very self-explanatory.
So let's always be leaving it like that. Let's move on to the next one. It's just a shame that it's kids, actually. Quite frankly.
Are they kids?
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're kids. Listen.
They could be nutritionally stunted.
Well, Judith, overdoing it. Come on. Stop already. But
I mean, because do you want to depict children or just adults that are
this is how bad it's gotten.
Oh, that's a giant.
This is how bad it's gotten, Judith. The fact that I had a personal experience where a kid simply... I was having this very delicious meal, which is... It was made for me by somebody here anyway, but it was very delicious. And I think I was driving past Oingbo. I was in Oingbo trying to do some shopping for my hobby. And I found this kid on the pavement sitting down, and he did look like as if he was dejected and hungry. And I had to give him all of that because he actually was. I asked him, when last did you eat? And he said he hadn't eaten that day. Imagine how I felt. I'm not making this up. That's how bad it was. I'm being told that we have to round up this session, but we still have more strips that we might be bringing your way through the course of the show. So please do forgive me if I do jump back in here to bring those strips for you because they were very, very interesting. So let's do this now so we can move on to our very first conversation for this morning. Welcome once again. This is Breakfast Extra. It's Mazino and Judith. We'll be back.
And you're welcome. It's time for our very first big story for today, and this time it's the political climate in Edo State that has once again become under intense scrutiny following the controversial verdict of the Edo State Governorship Election Petition Tribunal. But it's not just the verdict that has tongues wagging. A leaked version of the judgment made its way online hours before the official ruling, sparking widespread outrage, allegations of judicial compromise, and a fresh wave of political finger-pointing between the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP. The tribunal ultimately ruled in favor of Senator Monday Opelo of the APC, annulling the election of PDP's Asui Igodalo, but the fallout is far from over.
Now, with questions swirling around the integrity of the judiciary, the role of digital leaks, and the next steps from both camps, Edo's political future hangs in the balance. We'll be getting perspectives this morning from key media aides on both sides of the political side, and our correspondent, who will also be joining us to give us his recount of things that happened.
All right. And joining us live here in the news, or rather joining us live, we have Anthony Ehilobo. He is a special advisor on media to the PDP's candidate, Asu Ighodalo. Also joining us is Godswill Inegbe. He's a special advisor to Governor Monday Okpebholo on media and publicity. And also joining us as well, who's been covering the tribunal proceedings from day one, is our very own Joshua Emarai, who joins us live from the capital, Abuja. Good morning to you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us.
Very much for having me.
Good morning. Let's just get started, shall we? And let me start with you, Mr. Anthony Ehilobo. Your principal's immediate reaction. What was your principal's immediate reaction to the tribunal's verdict?
Well, thank you very much for having me once again. You know, we live in a society where we must expect justice, but where we don't get it, we must be bold enough to express our discontent. But my principal is a lawyer with over 40 years experience, has built one of the top law firms in Nigeria. So he's a disciple in the temple of justice and will remain faithful, or have his faith still enshrined in the practice of law, and that one can always get justice, even if at the first level you find some travesty has occurred, and which is what has happened at the Edo Tribunal, led by Justice Bochi and two others. We are gravely disappointed in their judgment, to say the least, because we expected them to do justice to our petition. But what we have found is that they have, like my chairman at the state level, Edo PDP chairman Tony Azbimi said, they have become and made themselves the fourth respondents in this issue. Justice Bochi, while reading and delivering his judgment, introduced a case that was neither introduced by either of the parties, making himself a willful Father Christmas, introducing the case of Tanko, which has no bearing on this particular case, but he needed something, he needed a ground to introduce the technicality of not delving into the matter that was substantially before him with enough credible evidence. When I'm talking about evidence, we're talking about CTCs of the Beaver, CTCs of the IRF, CTCs of from EC8As, CTCs from EC25B, which were all in contention. And you must realize that our petition never at any point pointed to any misdemeanor at the polling units. Our petition was solely hinged on non-compliance with the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act, in certain sections, it implies a certain strict compliance and mandatory performance of certain actions. And these actions are put in there to forestall any misdemeanor at election venues, such as the PUs. So, for instance, we are contending that going by Section 72(2) of the Electoral Act, every form EC 825B must be priorly filled at the RAC center. The RAC center is the resident area center, and the major people at the RAC center are the SPOs and the POs, that is presiding officer and the presider. These are INEC staff. It mandates them to record the serial number of sensitive materials. Now, Section 57, I think, of the Electoral Act is 54. It's very specific as to the outcome if this prior recording is not done. It says you must cancel the result of these polling units if the serial numbers are not prior recorded. The judges did not even get into the meat of the matter, using a technicality and saying that evidence was dumped. There was no evidence that was dumped on them. These evidence were introduced through the bar, and you admitted them.
All right.
The only thing we're seeing now is that these judges did not delve into the meat of the matter. Instead, they found a technicality, introduced a technicality from nowhere, and did not do justice to the case before them. And then there's also another specific issue of non-proper collation of results.
Just a second, Mr. Hilabo.
Now we're going to get into that technicality that you discussed. We're also going to get into the evidence that was presented, and also your defendants, or rather, should I say, your witnesses as well. But let me come to Mr. Inegbe. First of all, let me say congratulations on the verdict on your end. But with the controversy surrounding, the leak of that judicial paper that we saw online just 24 hours before the official ruling, do you worry that this taints your camp's legal victory? And if you have any response to Mr. Hilabo's claims?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm not here to debate any inanities with anybody here, because of, if you recall, when I was invited, I do say that I'm with the government in Edo Central, and we have serious engagement this morning. And in the next few 30 minutes, I'm expected to join the governor to attend the very important function this morning. So I want to maximize the few time that I will be able to spend on this program before I actually leave, because a lot of people are waiting for my directives. And as I said before, I'm not here to debate any issue with my brother from the opposition, but I'm just here to state the fact. The fact remains that the mandate that was given to Senator Monday Okpebholo, by the grace of God, popularly known in Edo State today as Akpaku Rescue, because of his intervention in every sector in Edo State, in just less than 43 days in office. The mandate was affirmed by the Edo State Election Petition Tribunal. I was in that court on that day when the judgment was given, and if you guys were there, you will see how the judges of the tribunal took our time to do justice to the petitions, not just from the PDP, but from other opposition parties that filed petition against the governor. The mandate of the governor, based on the reaction of Edo people, when the tribunal affirmed his mandate, I wish you guys would have been in Edo State to see how Edo people, how they rejoiced over the judgments. Even when the governor, after the judgment arrived in Benin City, the capital city, at the airport, you can see the mammoth crowd that waited for the governor. And it took us 2 to 3 hours to be able to leave the airport environment, even going through the airport road leading to the popular ring road and to the upper palace in Benin. Usually, a place that could have used 5 minutes to 10 minutes to drive to, it took us hours. Because Edo people, they came out en masse across the state. They blocked all the streets, blocked the road, celebrating the profound judgment that was given in favor of the governor. It's a testament to the fact that the governor was the one that the Edo people voted for. It is a testament to the fact, to the popularity of this governor. It is a demonstration to the fact that the people of Edo, they do really voted for this governor, and they are happy with what the governor is doing. And when this judgment came in favor to affirm the declaration of this governor by the INEC, the entire Edo people celebrated it in a manner they've not seen in this state before.
Yes, we were in Edo State. In fact, we had our correspondent covering, even if he was in Abuja. So we're going to be bringing Joseph Imurai in very soon to give us an idea of what the courtroom, at least, was like when this judgment was made. However, I was curious as to know exactly how you feel, noting that the APC have told that the judgment was actually influenced. What's your thought on this one?
Well, in our climb, especially in this country, when people lose or rather lost in any competition, they find it difficult to accept defeat. we don't expect the opposition party, especially the PDP now, because it was not only PDP that actually had a petition in that tribunal. There are other political parties that also had the petition that was dismissed. But the other party has accepted the judgment in good faith. But as usual of PDP, because they were voted out of office, and two people rejected PDP and rejected their candidates. So we don't expect them to accept the judgment. Of course, they must come with conspiracy theories. We expect that. As I said before, it's typical in this crime, in the world, there are politics in this country. Right. It's something that is common with it. Right. So we are not really, we are not really moved by that. That's why I just told you that look at the reactions of the people, because it's the people that matters here, not individual who lost elections that are feel bittered. The people were excited. The people of Edo State are excited. As we speak right now, we're in Edo Central. When the governor came into Edo Central yesterday, it was a triumphant entry of a hero. You can see the crowds. All right. Today, this morning, the people are hosting the governor for the same victory reception all over the states.
All right, Mr. Enebe.
So what else do you want to show us as evidence that the judgment was the judgment in favor of the people, and the people are happy about it?
All right, Mr. Enebe. My question was actually the PDP. Apologies there, I got that mixed up. But Judith, you were going to ask.
I was going to come to Joshua. Can I just a second. Let me come to Joshua Marai, because that would lead me to my next question for you, Mr. Ilobo. And Joshua, you were in the courtroom, and you have been following the petition, the election petition, when he was moved to Abuja from Edo State. And you also have done a report on the mixed reaction that have trailed this verdict. What's your take on the evidence, the technicalities, and also what was the mood like in that room?
I will start with the mood in that particular day. The mood was tense. Different parties were expectant of a ruling that was going to favor their camp. But concerning the evidence and the exhibit so far, I have nothing to say, because only the lawyers of both parties can put their cases to court. The judges, in their magnanimity and wisdom, has deemed that particular exhibit and evidence not enough for them to put their case. So I will leave that to the judge. But concerning the atmosphere there, it was tense. You could see it in the faces of party faithfuls that they are expectant of something to favor them. But unfortunately for the PDP, it was not in their favor. And though the trial motions were actually read out before the Justice Which read his particular judgment on the petition by the PDP, pre-trial motions were read out. And I can tell you for sure that the PDP swayed most of the motions into their favor. And most of the exhibit that was presented to them was admitted as evidence, yes. But unfortunately, the ruling was not in favor of them. This is, we know this is Nigeria, and Nigeria is one place that has a kind of political intrigue to all these kind of cases. They are even saying it from the street that it's very, very difficult to unseat an incumbent. I don't know how true that is, but we'll just be looking at the appeal to see what it has for us.
All right. Mr. Elobo, giving the tense reaction, or rather the tense mood that was in the courtroom there as the verdict was being announced, but also the comments of a triumphant welcome of a hero and the celebrations by the Edo people. Your take, your response.
Well, I've been saying that, but if you gauge the mood of Edo people, you can tell who really won that election and the disappointment from the judgment. Before that, I had heard that they had mobilized all their caretaker chairmen to mobilize people to form some sort of celebratory mood. I assure you, Aswa Godalo, the day he gets judgment, hopefully at appeal court, will not need to mobilize anybody. You will see it, you will feel it. You will feel the real passion of people, because people know who they wanted. People know who they voted for. Have you seen the comments from the U.S. mission in Nigeria? Have you seen the number of civil society organizations that have spoken up against the elections? TAP Initiative has gone to ICPC regarding the alleged forgeries that happened during the election. Listen, the case we presented before the tribunal rests on two legs. One, substantial non-compliance by INEC with the Electoral Act, which mandates you through its processes of checks and balance, that you must fill forms prior to elections. That was not done. And we presented CTCs of this. INEC did not refute any of the CTCs we presented to the courts. The second leg was in the wrong collation. Now, the courts were asking us to provide polling unit agents to testify. We did not contend that anything was wrong at the polling units. Look, the documents that were admitted, according to your reporter just now, were admitted as evidence into court, included certified true copies of the beavers from EC8As, the copies that were given to our agents. The only variance you see was the collation result by INEC, which is completely different. So you will see a result that from the IRF CTC that is 41. You will see that it tallies with the agent copy given by INEC at the polling unit. But what you will see at the recorded collation figure will be 541. And these are the things that we contended with. You cannot be celebrating a Pyrrhic victory, a victory that you stole. And everybody knows that you stole. Go on IRF today. Go on, it's still there, it's not been taken down. Go on the INEC's website, on the IRF.
So, Mr. Hilabo, what next for the PDP? Mr. Hilabo, what next for the PDP now that you're confirming that these processes weren't carried out in a proper fashion? What's the next step for the PDP? Can you confirm what they're going to do next before I ask my next question?
So, of course, we're headed to the appeal court. Like I said, we may be disappointed with the actions of Justice Pochi and his merry fourth respondents. Okay. But we still have absolute faith.
All right, so
that there are still a few good men in the judiciary and we can get judgments.
If the PDP is going to the appeal court, then the question is what further evidence will be brought up that would substantiate your claim?
There's no need for further evidence.
And then let's note, Mr. Hilabo, just a second, I'm very sorry, but just a second. And then what about the effect on the Edo people? What about the effect on the governance in Edo State? We've seen this play out in other states in Nigeria and what it ended up in. Is the PDP willing to risk this up until that level again?
Well, you can see what governance is. We almost had a national issue due to them dropping the ball in terms of security management. Today, we are still trying to reconcile with our brothers in the north for the unjustified killing of 16 people, which would never have happened under a responsible government. But we know that there have been prior cases that were not resolved at tribunal level. Governor Doyejiri got his mandate at the Supreme Court. Same thing with the governor of Zamfara State. Same thing with even the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodimma. So we're very hopeful that these lapses that we've seen, especially with the failure of the judges to particularly look at the evidence. I'm sure my brother here, while he was speaking, spoke very vaguely and very bogusly. I will never see anybody that will speak and challenge the kind of evidence that we have put before the courts. Let them, I would like to engage them, say, okay, we presented evidence, we presented our polling unit, but the courts refused to even look at the evidence because they knew that the minute that they went into the substance, into the evidence that we presented witnesses. Let me give you an instance. For instance, when we're talking about non-collation, right? Because like I said, there are two prongs of this case. The non-collation of results. Itoboka Ward 2 has 77 polling units, out of which INEC excluded 76 polling units. We brought the collation agents. We brought the CTCs to ask INEC, and INEC did not even have a reason. They said, no, there was beavers bypass, but they did not submit to the court any evidence, did not present anything to controvert what we had said. Right. So how then do you think we've gotten justice when this was not even considered by the judges?
Yeah, Mr. Hilabo, at the risk of making a case for Mr. Inegbe, he has said that he is not going to engage in any debate that he's only here for a short period of time to
Because
speak
he
on
can't.
a
Because he cannot.
yeah. We'll most likely have a conversation with another representative of APC to bring their own facts to the table. But as
will
we
never
close
find
this
anybody that has
conversation,
facts.
because I know everyone's pressed for time, you got to be with your daughter, and of course, Mr. Enebo has to continue with the sake of governance for the people of Edo. Let me ask Joshua. Joshua, you spoke to witnesses in your earlier report that you filed during the week regarding, this verdict and all of the evidences that was provided by the PDP. What next? Just speaking to the witnesses and from the mood, what do you think will play out in our political scene? Go.
Well, one thing I must say before I answer to that is that this is healthy for opposition in the Nigerian political scene. I understand that parties will still be aggrieved concerning that particular rule, but it is a sign that the Nigerian party system and the Nigerian political scene is seeing a perfectly healthy opposition. But speaking of the next level in the entire imbroglio, we are seeing them approach the appeal court. And for that, they have to present the evidence and as much claims they can present and so on. But one thing must stick. The Justice Mifekuchi judgment earlier said that you can't bring people who were not makers of those documents to testify on those documents. What it means that you have to bring the presiding officer in this ward. If there was irregularity in the ward, you bring the presiding officer of the ward. If there is irregularity in the unit, you bring such from the unit, and even polling unit agents. Now, if that stance should stand, when they appeal this case, now the question is, will the appeal court still stand on this particular verdict that you have to bring the makers of those documents to testify in court? That is one question we're hoping to answer during the case of this appeal.
Right. And lastly to you, Mr. Enegbe, just to wrap up.
Quickly, I wanted just to quickly say one or two things to my brother, from a kind of response. As I said before, when I say I don't want to engage in any debate, what I actually meant is that I don't see the essence of trying to be arguing with my brother regarding the case, the whole case, which according to the judges, because as I said before, I was in that court the day the judgment was given, according to the judges, the case that they failed to prove. If you were there, you will see the tone, how the judges chastise the counsels or the legal team of the PDP for failing to do their job. And what was that? During the day, during the judgment, the judges do even ask that, how could the PDP legal team dump document on the judges without not be able to even explain or prove what is inside the documents? In the same vein, the same judges, lambasted the legal team of the PDP that they came to dump the bimodal system that we use for voting. They dump it on the tribunal without not even opening it for the tribunal to know what is inside there. That was their responsibility. You see, the problem with Edo PDP and the remaining followers there, they are good in promoting lies and falsehoods. They are good in selling propagandas. When in reality, they know the truth and they are unable to accept the truth to themselves. Of course, it's a common knowledge in the law. He who alleges must prove. Now, the judges have said that you are unable to prove to us what you are claiming. You understand? For instance, everybody understand that our electoral process, when election is conducted, election are usually done at the polling units. That's where the result emanates from. Before it transmitted to the collation center.
All right.
Now, you are proving that this election, you guys, the PDP, according to them, they said that they won it. And which means if you say you have won this election, it should start from the units level. From the witnesses they brought to the tribunal, none of the witnesses were able to testify that what they are even, what they brought them to come and testify in the court, that they were at the unit level to see. All of them agreed that they were not there. Now the tribunal, the judges, they were dumbfounded. They don't really know that.
We seem to have lost Mr. Inigbe there. This is where we close the curtains for this discussion.
Can I just quickly respond? Please?
No, unfortunately,
I really need to respond because there's a section of the Electoral Act.
30 seconds, please. 30 seconds.
Section 320 says that you do not need to call oral evidence when you have presented evidence that on the face of it shows substantial non-compliance. We presented CTCs, and again, to my brother, we are not contesting or contending results from the polling units. We are contending where the fraud happened, which is at the collation center, wrong collations, and we presented witnesses, credible witnesses. We presented the polling agent of Ikobaka. What happened to that? What was he saying that the evidence was dropped on them? Are the judges unaware of Section 372? And besides, they knew about 372. That's why the judges became the fourth respondents to introduce a case that was not pleaded by any of the parties. That's why they introduced Kanko, just to give them the leverage to be able to say, no, you presented evidence without. That's not the case here. Our case is very straightforward. In about 300 or so polling units, you failed to collate properly the results. And that's all we are going to the appeal court to say. They didn't look at the substance of the matter.
Gentlemen, I hate that we have to cut this conversation short, but we do have to go. We want to say thank you so much for taking out the time to come on today and have this discussion. And we also want to extend a right of reply to the APC and, of course, the PDP to come out another time to discuss this if and when the PDP decides to take this to the Court of Appeal. But once again, thank you, gentlemen. And thank you to Joshua Marayu for all your hard work following this the tribunal matter. Thanks again. And we switch gears now from Edo to Anambra State, where the race to Anambra Government House is heating up and the countdown to the 2025 governorship election is officially underway. 3 political parties, the All Progressives Congress, the All Progressives Grand Alliance, that's the APGA, the All Progressives Congress, APC, and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, are holding their primaries this weekend to select their flag bearers. With political intrigues, zoning dynamics, and internal party strategies shaping the narrative, the question on everyone's mind is who will emerge as the leading contenders in this high-stakes battle? And we have our correspondent on the ground bringing us various details from updates from all the various party primaries across Anambra State.
So joining us now is Austin Azu, who's going to be giving us details about his location. Austin, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning on Breakfast Extra. First, give us a quick background or idea of what it is like at your location. Austin, I'm hoping that you heard us. We're asking you to give us an idea of what it is like at your location. Seems we're having a bit of a communication difficulty.
Oh, there we go. Well, all eyes are on Anambra as they decide their election. So much is on the table this time around, and we hope that whoever the parties will be picking is just very strong contenders who are able to deal with the issues that Anambra faces. And at the top of the list is insecurity, agitations, and sit-at-home orders.
Now, here's a quick background on the state of play. Now, as Anambra prepares for the 2025 gubernatorial elections, political parties are firming up their strategies. APGA, APGA, the ruling party in the state, is looking to maintain its stronghold amidst internal wrangling and also public scrutiny of Governor Charles Soludo's performance. Now, in the APC, factional divides threaten a unified front with multiple aspirants laying claim to legitimacy. Meanwhile, the PDP is navigating its own turbulence, with rival groups laying the backwork for a primary that could either consolidate or fracture the party's chances at the polls. Just a quick background there for you. I'm told we have Austin Azu back with us. Let's give it another try.
He's at the Alex Ikweme Square.
Austin, please, once again, if you can give us an idea of what the atmosphere is like where you are. Oh dear.
Fine. Where we are right now for the APGA primary election, we are at Ekweme Square, and you can see some of the delegates are started making their way into the premises, and of course the primary election is due to commence at 8 a.m. and we have a lot of them on the other side queuing up for their accreditation. But my cameraman will just do me a favor and pan around and see the presence of security personnel on the ground. You can see the heavily armed security personnel on the ground to ensure law and order in this primary election. And not only that, we equally have other sister security agencies apart from the police, and we equally have the DSS and of course some other local vigilante to ensure they are able to prevent any breakdown of law and order. All right, let's take a walk and see how the delegates are faring. The delegates are supposed to queue up in each of their local government areas for them to collect their accreditation. And we have 21 local government areas in Anambra State. And of course, you can see we have most of them already started being attended to by each of those who are supposed to go into the primary election. All right, I have one of the delegates with me here. His name is Austin. Of course, is my namesake. All right, please take us through. How's the process like? How is it going?
Yeah, so far so good, seamless. I'm an observer. I'm here as an observer, so we are observing with you actually. So this is where they will do the accreditation for observers, and Liz is already here. He's the person that is in charge of observers delegate list. So these areas are for the delegates, people that will cast the votes, but we are to observe. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have Nelson, who is going to take us through the process so far. Please take us through what have you observed so far? How's the conduct like?
What we have here today is we are here to fulfill all righteousness. We are here to also fulfill one of the very constitutional requirements, and that is to have the party primaries to elect our candidates for this election. We are very fortunate to have one person, our own dear governor, Mr. Solution, working governor, as the only candidate for APGA. So that's why I say we are here to fulfill our righteousness. As you can see, things are moving, accreditation is ongoing, very orderly. I'm one of the persons doing the accreditation for the people. So things are moving on very well. People are lined up in an orderly manner. The security men are well positioned. Those controlling traffic are there. And the party people are excitedly, in their numbers you can see, it's not up to 9 a.m., but people have filled up the arena. So we are happy that the day has come, and we are happy that we are coming today to unanimously endorse our own governor, who have proven that the excellent politics is where you give people value for.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. All right, we have a delegate here. His name is Azobike. Okay, please just take us through if you have done your accreditation.
Yes, I have done my accreditation.
Take us through the process you went through before you were accredited for this exercise.
They will check your name on the list, and you identify here means you identify yourself. I identified myself with national identification, so I was given the gate pass.
Okay. Finally, how are you seeing the process at these early hours of this exercise?
I think we are going to leave here very early. It's very smooth, properly organized. So I am happy with the organizers. With this, the accreditation can be over within 2 hours, and then the whole process, it's easy, it's safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Azubike. Of course, you can see that these delegates are anxious for them to go and exercise their political franchise. And thereafter, we have the national leadership of APGA who are on ground here to conduct the election, and thereafter, subsequently, hopefully by 12, they will go into the balloting before they will start sorting. Of course, they will announce the winner of the primary election. And we are informed that it's only the governor who is on the ballot for this exercise. Of course, it seems going to be affirmation, which they promised that they are going to follow the 2022 Electoral Act as amended, and of course the 1999 Constitution as amended to conduct this primary election.
All right. Well, Austin Azu, many thanks. Austin Azu, there, correspondent live from Alex Ekweme Square in Awka, Anambra State, giving us a bit of update on the primaries election for APGA. That's the All Progressives People's Congress. Let's take a short break, shall we? When we return, there's going to be plenty more inside here, but first the news. Stay with us.
Welcome to the headlines. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now, we begin with updates from the killings in Uromi, Edo State, where the leadership of the Professional Hunters Association of Nigeria in Rano, Bunkure, Kibia, and Garko local government areas of Kano State have called on the Edo State government to ensure justice for their members killed in Uromi. They spoke to News Central Television in Rano, Kano State, and warned that there will be consequences if justice was swept under the carpet.
Showcasing their identity cards to project authenticity, these men claim to be the leaders of the Professional Hunters Association of Nigeria in Kano. They expressed worry over a failure to pursue justice for their members by the state government, saying citizens from other regions are usually given more attention.
Sai a kafa kwamitoci a ta surutu a gidan rediyo, amma duk ina aka samu sati ɗaya biyu shikenan bayan kwamiti ya tattara rahotonsa ya bada sa kafa a taki.
They also cited examples of northern leaders who have helped southerners pursue justice while they enjoyed their stay in the north.
Lokacin mulkin Umar Abdullahi Ganduje, tsohon gwamnan jihar Kano, an zargi wata mata a kofar Wambai ta yi tole faifa da alkurani mai tsarki. Wannan ya fusata al'ummarmu suka mai da martani har a ta ga ta rasa ranta. Kudancin ƙasar nan suka yi ta a kan an zalunce su ba su lura da girman alkurani mai tsarki da ta wulakanta ba, an zalunce su saboda haka dole sai an biya su diyarsu. Shugabanninmu ba su lura da ba su la'akari da haƙoƙinmu ba. Suka ce mu ne muka aikata laifi, suka kama mutanen suka kulle. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje sai da ya tashi ya je kudancin ƙasar nan ya ba su baki ya biya diyar wannan baiwar Allah da farashi mafi tsada.
They say their contributions to peace in the country have been taken for granted while vowing to ensure those killed in Uromi obtain justice.
Wallahi tallahi ba mu da niyyar yafiya akan wannan abu da aka yi mana, wallahi tallahi ko du za a kare mu, wallahi sai mun dau hukunci akan wannan na yadda in kuma gwamnati ta yi mana adalci. Duniya, shugaban ƙasa, gwamnoni na jihar Kano na Najeriya gaba ɗaya su ba mu gudunmawa akan wannan hakkin zalunci da aka yi mana.
Mu a jihar Kano kowa ya sani jihar Kano tana da kana ɗaya a Najeriya. Abin doka muna bin dokokin shugabanninmu shine ike sa ake samun akasin irin wannan abubuwan ake wulakanta mana sana'a da muka gada gun iyayenmu.
As reactions and counter-reactions continue to trail the unfortunate Uromi incident, the hunters are hoping that justice will bring closure to the entire episode. In Rano, Kano, for News Central, Emmanuel Bagudu.
The Police Service Commission has removed Mrs. Betty Enekben Isokban Otimeyi as the Commissioner of Police in charge of Edo State Command. She was removed as Commissioner of Police in the state due to the killing of 16 travelers in Uromi Esan Northeast Local Government area of Edo State on March 27, 2025. The PSC appointed Monday Ogbonika as her replacement. Betty Otimeyi was appointed as the 49th CP of the state on January 16, 2025. She took over from CP Peter Omuru Ozigi at his retirement on January 25, 2025. A statement by the Commission's head of press and public relations, Ike Chukwani, said the new Commissioner of Police, Monday Agbonika, was until his deployment to Edo State, the Commissioner of Police mounted troop force the Force Equitation Officer, Force Headquarters, Abuja. Now, the new CP was also advised to look into the issue surrounding the recent killings in the state. In a related development, tension erupted at the Eze Bakagba market in Port Harcourt on Friday when a female food vendor narrowly escaped being lynched by an angry mob over an allegation of blasphemy. The incident began after a disagreement between the vendor and a male trader, which escalated into a confrontation involving religious sentiments. Members of the Muslim community accused the woman of blasphemy, leading to the destruction of her food items and other belongings. The situation grew tense, and the woman fled for her safety, with some individuals pursuing her. Police intervention prevented further violence, dispersing the crowd with tear gas. Traders at the market have called for increased security and suggested the vendor be placed under protective custody to avoid future incidents. Fineface Dumemene, Executive Director of YEAC Nigeria, condemned the rise in religious intolerance and urged respect for others' beliefs. Security reports say calm has been restored in 5 communities of Mongor, Munguna, Dafo, Huti, and Tadai that came under violent attacks in Boko's local government area of Plateau State following an invasion by unknown gunmen. News Central's Chizobanyan reports that efforts made to visit Bokos was unsuccessful, as security experts say it is still unsafe for non-security personnel. However, confirming the recent incident was the commander of Operation Rainbow, Brigadier General Garji Shipi, retired, during an interview session with journalists in Jos, the state capital. For him, the attack was based on sheer criminality and nothing about ethno-religious factors, as being purported by many in some quarters. Garji Shipi said unconfirmed numbers of arrests have been made, regretting that the casualty figures are yet to be ascertained.
Unfortunately, without any provocation, without any incidents happening, we witnessed another wave of terror attacks, especially within Boko's local government. So for the past 2 days, we've had those attacks within the general area of Josho, Daho, and Manguna. And in the process, a lot of communities have been razed and some casualties have been recorded. The exact figures are not yet concluded, because up till now we are still undertaking operations to determine the total extent of casualties. But we have definitely recorded some, and in a very gruesome manner for that matter. We've been unable to put our finger as to what gave rise to what has happened, but gladly the security agencies have made some very important arrests that are helping us to unveil what has gone wrong. And at the appropriate time, when the investigations are completed, you will also be informed. And from all indications, when these investigations are completed, we'll be able to get to the root of why this happened, and then subsequently we'll be able to cut it off completely and ensure that we don't experience this kind of situation within the state.
Now to health matters. A growing shortage of nurses and midwives is one of the most pressing issues in Africa, as skilled healthcare professionals migrate to developed countries, leaving many parts of the continent vulnerable. At the 28th Nigeria Union of Nursing Students Association annual general meeting held at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, healthcare experts and stakeholders discussed ways to tackle this crisis. News Central's Amolola Ololade has more in this report.
Nursing plays a pivotal role in delivering healthcare services while improving health outcomes. However, the profession faces significant challenges, including inadequate resources, limited professional development opportunities, and infrastructure deficiencies. It is on this premise that the Nigerian University's Nursing Student Association, at a press briefing, brought to the fore some of the inherent challenges facing the profession, while discussing practical solutions for sustainable healthcare in the country.
Why government is trying to solve that disadvantage of trying to create more schools, but the more you create, the more there are opportunity for people to jackpot. But I want to tell you that one of the advantages is that these same people that have jackpot are also thinking of coming back, are already coming back to help the institution.
And apart from that, we want to address some of the challenges affecting the nursing profession, like the issue of quackery in the nursing profession. I'm sure we are aware of this, that we have a lot of untrained people disguising as nurses and causing a lot of problems in our society. So we are going to be sensitizing the communities about this.
While the country faces a shortage of skilled workers due to the exodus of nurses, stakeholders believe the government plays a huge role in improving nurses' welfare and helping them render selfless services to their patients.
if they make available all the things that we need to manage our patients, people will stay. And of course, I've also said it, they should also improve our profession too. People should develop themselves. They should have policies in place that will make people to progress. They must highlight our progression, and when people know that, oh, they have a way to follow, and then they will get to the top. Of course, they will wait.
Quackery is another major challenge facing the nursing profession in Nigeria, hence the need for strict policies to salvage the reputation while reducing the havoc caused by quacks.
They can be abolished. Principles, rules, policies backed by political will, intentional principles by political will phase out nurses for the love of the country.
Experts, however, advocate advanced roles for nurses to expand their scope of practice, increasing patient care outcomes, revolutionizing the nursing profession, and improving Nigeria's healthcare system, among others. In Lagos for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
And that's it for the headlines this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Do stay tuned. We've got more discussion inside of Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. It's time for us to turn our attention to a crisis that continues to threaten Nigeria's stability, the persistent conflict between herdsmen and farmers. Across the country, from the north to the south, violent clashes over land, grazing routes, and agricultural resources have led to widespread displacement, loss of lives, and economic downturns in affected regions. Just this week, a report from Kano and Rivers State paint a troubling picture of escalating tensions.
So this morning we go beyond the headlines to examine the root causes, security implications, and possible solutions to this growing conflict. Joining us now, Confidence Makari, Senior Security Analyst at SBM Intelligence, who will help us unpack the security dimensions of the crisis. All the way from Kano State, we are going to have joining us Yahaya Iliasu, CEO Leco Limited, and also we are expecting our correspondent Emmanuel Bagudu to also join us all the way from Kano as well, since he brought us that report. We are set to go for this conversation. Now, Mr. Makari, first off, give us an overview of what we're looking at here regarding the dimensions for the disputes we're seeing between herdsmen and communities.
One of the first things to notice is national. This morning, before coming to the studio, I was thinking about how widespread it is, and I realized that a couple of years ago, it was mostly a problem that was associated with the southern part of Kaduna, parts of the Middle Belt. We were talking about Benue Plateau and the likes. I think at the height of the problem in 2013, we had the Agatu massacre in Benue, and that's when it really became a national headline. But as of this morning, I think there are only 3 states in the country that has not readily reported clashes between herders and farmers, and I think it's not because they're special, but because the security situation in those 3 states preclude the herders from moving the way they do. And these states are Zamfara, Yobe, and Borno. In Borno State, for instance, the herders are not given breathing spaces by ISWAP and the rival Boko Haram faction. It's almost the same thing in Yobe State, where ISWAP basically controls most of the territory on the border on the boundary with Borno State rather. And in Zamfara, the security situation is so sparse out there, too many multiple players for them to even try to gain into foothold. So everywhere else across the country, it's more of the same. There's hardly any southern states in the country that has not experienced 1 or 2 of that. I think Lagos might be a little bit of an exception, but when you're going out of Lagos on the Lagos-Ibadan expressway down to the other parts of the country, it's a national issue.
Sir, Confidence, for those who do not know, let's explain exactly what's at the core here. Now, these herders are nomadic, is that what it is? And as they travel across the country, they have to also perhaps they need spaces for their animals.
Yes, they do.
So what causes the confrontation between them and farmers is that their animals use these farm spaces and consume these farm products. Am I correct?
Yes.
Can you confirm that?
So they do that. So that's just one aspect of the conflict.
What other aspects are there?
The other aspect is where it grows out of the clashes between the farmers. You go into a farm, you destroy the farm, and then it becomes a reprisal and everything. What we're seeing in, say, Benue or in parts of southern Kaduna and some other parts of the country, or even in northern Enugu, for instance, is the problem has shifted all the way from you do me, I do you, based on farm and all of these grazing issues, you trespass on my farm, to wiping out whole communities. as a retribution. So it has become an ethnic thing. And given how the geopolitical situation in Nigeria, anything that becomes ethnic has a tendency to be religious, So that's just one aspect of it. And of course, you could attribute it to many of these issues, like the broken down nature of the traditional dispute resolution mechanisms in Nigeria. Over the years, since the formation of Nigeria and this modern state as we know it, we no longer have the extent and the overwhelming authority of the traditional institutions anymore. Right now, traditional rulers are just merely civil servants, on the government's payroll. They don't really derive the authority and legitimacy from the people. They derive it from the government. So which is why the state government could create any stool, any monarchy they want and everything. And the people who they put in there are much more beholden to the state government than they are beholden to the people. And as such, if there is a conflict between a farmer and a herder, in the past, before the country got independence, the way it worked is that if you go into a farm and you destroy it, you take you to the village head, they resolve the conflict, and then you look at the damage done, and then the herder will be asked to pay. If you kill the herder's cows, and then the conflict was resolved, and then he says you're at fault, you have to pay a certain amount, and everybody goes away. But nowadays, people have realized that the traditional dispute mechanisms are no longer working because the traditional rulers don't really care about their people anymore. And you could also draw a parallel line between that and then the weak state capacity of the Nigerian state, because people know that if something happens to your farm, you go to the police, you can't get redress.
Okay. Let me welcome our correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, who has been following stories of the sort. In fact, brought us a report during the week. And I'm being told that we have Biola Festus as well joining us, and Mr. Yahaya has joined us as well. Mr. Bagudu, you're welcome. Thank you very much. If you please care of the local sentiments have been in these communities that have been affected regarding the farmer herder,
especially the herders themselves. Some of them have resolved to self-help. And it's in this process of resolving to self-help that we see the activities of banditry. You know that there's this set of persons, criminals in the bush that we refer to as mercenaries. There are mercenaries being used by...
Seem to have lost Emmanuel there. Emmanuel, go ahead. We lost you for a second. We continue.
Of Lakurawa in Kebbi and Sokoto State. Community members actually brought them to protect their cows because the community members have lost trust, resolved to self-help, which is bad. And then by the time you start bringing in mercenaries to come and help you take care of your cows, those mercenaries just go ahead and then becoming criminals. Then talking about the issue of the killings in Uromi, the communities in Uromi, the communities in Kano whose children were killed at Uromi. The general belief here is that there's also a very strong belief. There's also a strong belief that there may be a compromise. If you look at the body language of the community members whose brothers, whose sisters, whose uncles were killed, you also see that they also have a belief that there may be compromise. And if there's any compromise, they are going to be forced to take their laws into their hands. So they are warning government every day and night that this is not a case of after 2-3 weeks, then the story just died down and they die down naturally. They said they're not going to allow this die down. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Let me come to Biola Festus. Biola, you also did file a report earlier this week, which we're going to play in due time. But that report was you talking to farmers in a particular community in Rivers State. And the farmers were, just decrying the issue of herdsmen who were, encroaching on their land, and also to the point of it melting down from just destroying their crops, but also gender-based violence as well. Right? And I'd like for you to just speak on that report and what it was like speaking to those people and the issues that they face.
Thank you, Judy. The story of Rivers State is different from that of the North. This is because in Rivers State, the anti-open grazing law is in place. And so this prohibits every form of open grazing in the state. Now, you would recall that even while discussions were ongoing about whether or not to allow the open grazing law in Rivers State, there were conversations around allocating a space or a land space for these herders to rear their animals. But the state governor then, who is currently the minister of the FCT, Nyesom, vehemently refused that. He said there were no place at all, or there were no places in Rivers State for cattle rearing or for cows to be reared. So you look at it first. Open grazing in the state is highly prohibited. Now, to these farmers, this is just the only means of survival they've got. The people of Oyibo, they are predominantly farmers. They farm all sorts of crops for commercial purposes. Now, their complaint is that these herders come into their farmlands to graze their animals. Now, apart from destroying their farm produce, they also commit certain mayhem on the locals there. Now, there were certain people who wouldn't talk on camera for fears of maybe being hunted down. But they told me that these people rape their women, that they even come into the community and kidnap people. Now, apart from the community I reported last week, there are two other neighboring communities, which is Obiakpo and Sai local government area. Now, Obiakpo is the largest LGA in Rivers State, and you can imagine them complaining that herders are now encroaching and are causing mayhem. Now, these people move around with guns. We do not know if the Nigerian law permits farmers such as cattle rearers to move about with ammunitions. These are all questions for the authorities to answer. So now, going back to the local government area, we got a report yesterday that someone was allegedly killed by suspected herdsmen. All of this is beginning to grow fear in the state. You know, we usually didn't have such news in these states. It was only heard from the northern part of the country. But now I can tell you that it is gradually encroaching and at a very fast pace.
All right. Gradually encroaching at a very fast pace. What say you, Mr. Yahya? And also, once again, thank you so much for joining us. What say you? We have seen the events that happened in Uromi to the point where people are now, what's the word I'm looking for? Lynched, for a better word. What say you?
The issue of Uromi has very little or nothing to do with rearing of animals. However, the real problem started, I think, the grazing, open grazing started more than 100 years back. Before that time, there is a
We're having issues there with his audio. We're going to come back to him to see if we can have that discussion. But let me come into the studio here. Confidence, 2.2 million people. From your report, 2.2 million people have been displaced in Benue. And you said that the issue sort of concentrates in the middle belt, where it's our food basket and then affect predominantly our food insecurity significantly. And then we saw the events that happened in Uromi, Benin City. Are we to the tipping point, as Festus has said?
Yeah, quite. And I'm trying to find the key difference between what's happening now and what happened between 2019 and 2020 at the height of the Ruga issue. I would think that a major difference is the fact that between 2019 and 2025, we've had more people take up arms. I'm talking about not just take up arms to defend themselves. I'm talking about take up arms to cause crimes and the likes. It's a testament to the fact that the homegrown arms manufacturing that is going on, which the security forces have been going about for quite some time, is usually more deeper than we think. And as such, our people are becoming a lot more aware. The reality is that they do think that the government is not going to save them. We are seeing a lot more protests than we used to before. In the past, whenever we had killings by Fulani herdsmen in Edo State, we'll see protests in, say, Ovia Northeast, Ovia Southwest, parts of Isako East and the likes. Now we are seeing it in Ishan West. We're seeing it where Uromi is. We're seeing protests in Eamufu in Edo State. We're seeing it in Plateau State. We're seeing it everywhere. So people are becoming a lot more aware that this is the last gasp. You understand? The government is supposed to be doing better, and they're not doing better. So we might get to a tipping point where I will think that for survival, many people will have to start arming themselves, not just necessarily with vigilantes, but for farmers themselves who cannot really rely on the vigilantes themselves because of how lightly equipped they are. At least at the very least, if they can take a stray header one-on-one on their farm, they could do so. Because for all intents and purposes,
so you're saying that it has melted down into banditry, kidnapping, and then militia.
We have already gone past that era. What made the security situation in the Northwest to spaz out the way it did was, as of 2017, people lost faith in the state's ability to be an impartial arbiter of justice and to recover the lost cattle. It gave rise to people like Buhari and Daji, who became a bandit so big that other people that were coming after him had to copy from him. So it descended into militia attacks, descended into banditry. As of yesterday, there were clashes between Fulanis and Hausas in Zamfara State. So it threw up a lot of security incidents that I think we're beginning to see a little bit of caricature and copycats of the same in certain parts of the country.
I think Mr. Yahya Aliyu was actually alluding to that as well. So let's come back to him. Mr. Yahya, I'm hoping that we have you set up right now so that we can continue on what you were saying from before. You were telling that this has gone past a herder-farmer issue. What were you trying to say, sir, if you can continue?
There are certain things that cause all these problems. One, there was a grazing reserve from the extreme northern part of Nigeria up to the southern part, up to the ocean, I can tell you. But with the passing of time, these grazing reserves have been chopped up by the farmers, and now the herders have no place at all to graze to feed their cattle. So in that case, when you blocked or when you chop where I'm going to feed my animals, what do you expect me to do? Certainly there is going to be a problem. The second thing is climate change. Climate change has forced so many herders to move southwards because they have to find a place where they will get their cattle. So they are moving southwards from time to time. Then the next thing is the population. Population increase. Every time there is a population increase, and unfortunately, the south doesn't have enough land to cultivate their farms. They have to expand their farms because the population has increased, and the land is so small. Now, if you look at the places like Enugu, Port Harcourt, wherever, you'll find that even the land is so small, but the population is increasing every time. Unlike in my state, Katsina, where we have vast land, but the problem we have now is the lack of rainfall, the climate change. So these are some of the things that make one of the things that make the hardest farmers clashes. Then there is also another problem. Another problem is the local institutions. They need to be empowered. The constitution of Nigeria does not even recognize the traditional institutions. The traditional institutions provide a very good solutions to resolve amicably hardest farmers clashes. But they are now non-grata. They have no space in our constitution. They have nothing to do. The earlier speaker said they are only employees of the government, but they have nothing. They have nothing to do in the government. Their only role is to advise. That is the only role they do. So in this case, we'll have to go back to the drawing board. One, we should open the grazing reserves. And if we say we are not going to allow open grazing, then it will have to take time before we just implement that one. Because this thing has been going on for more than 100 years, open grazing. And you cannot just come down one day or just in 2 years or 3 years and say you are going to close open grazing. It cannot be possible. That will only create more problems. And that is exactly what you are saying, what you are seeing. As for the Oromi incident, it has nothing to do with farmers and class. There are hunters that used to go to the south because of the climate change. In the north, there are no animals to hunt. They have to go to the south. And unfortunately, they are not educated how they should go to the south. Because you cannot just go to the place where you are not known and you start hunting. Even though your guns or your infants are dead guns, because the people are not educated. The situation in Nigeria is charged. Anywhere you see any unknown individual holding any gun or any weapon, you may mistake him for a bandit or a kidnapper. But that notwithstanding, you cannot as well go and allow somebody just because you see him, just because you see him with a weapon, a gun or whatever.
Now, Mr. Iliasu, now that's a very well noted point, and we're going to be coming to Mr. Bagudu regarding identity. I'm hoping that we can get him back, but I think, Judith, you've got a question for
I mean, Confidence, you have the right to reply, because I noticed you had your expression, you wanted to reply something.
Yeah, so I understand where it's coming from, given all of the causative factors you listed,
desertification,
to be fair to him, as of 1960 when Nigeria got independent, we had about 55 million people in the country. Now we have over 200 million. It's understandable that population explosion and everything has become so intractable that the government has not been able to handle it because they don't want to handle it. Where I differ with him fundamentally is the fact that it does not seem to realize that we've gone a different way from when the grazing routes were gazetted by the British to now. Population was going to explode. You understand? The question is cattle rearing a government business or a private business? Because what he's saying right now is we should still be doing what we were doing in 1913 when some of these routes were gazetted, and it's impossible.
Has there been an amendment to that?
I don't know about that. But what I will say is this: people have a right to their lands. They have a right to live peacefully where they are. Given that cattle rearing is a private business, the government should not be in the business of trying to do what it did in 2019, trying to get lands for them to build their, try to gazette more routes or try to get land for them to do their stuff. If you want to be a cattle rearer, oh well and good. Go and meet whoever is selling land, get a land and ranch your cattle. What you should not be doing in 2025 is rearing your cattle right down to someone else's farm and then shooting at the person for complaining. So what he's suggesting in 2025 is no longer in 1913 where it was going to work. We have population explosion. We have places where, in fairness to him, the grazing routes has been covered. So since the grazing routes has been covered and then human lives are at stake, businesses are at stake, what do? You simply have an amicable resolution where you buy a land in a place where you think you could get more pasture for your headers or for your head, and then once there, pay the land rent or whatever you want to do, pay the tax to the government, and ranch peacefully.
Are you also imputing the fact that he also mentioned that climate change is a big factor, and that's why they have to move down to the south?
Yeah. Exactly.
So if you're asking them to get designated ranches,
yes,
where would these ranches be? Up north, down south?
It could be anywhere.
How would that affect the culture of the people who rear these cattle? These are northerners.
These are the people who do this thing are mostly Fulanis. The Fulanis are divided into the sedentary people and the nomadic headers. Not all of them are nomadic in nature. So if where he is coming from being a Fulani man, there are people who learn to live within the city, learn to stay in one particular place, they could adapt. Now, I'm saying, in respect to your question, is they could get land anywhere. It doesn't necessarily need to have been purchased for them by the federal government. This is private business that the government needs to get out of. If you want to have a ranch to yourself, you could go to anywhere. In fact, when the Southern and Middle Belt governors in 2019 were pushing against Ruga, this is exactly what they said. I said, we cannot allow the federal government to come and designate lands in our state because you want to give it to headers. It's not done. It's not done. So what you do is, if you think that you could get more pasture or more grass for your headers in, say, Bayelsa or in Rivers or in Kano, by all means, go and get a CFO from the state government and settle there. Whenever it comes to renewing, you renew your stuff there. The major problem why I would agree with him or empathize with him that this is not going to work in the north is because of insecurity. And so if you're living in a place that's Zamfara, where it is practically impossible for you to carry a business, you go to the next state. Jigawa is a lot more peaceful than Zamfara. You could get stuff there. And even if, making more to the point that this is a business that the government should get out of, there are places in the south by which you could get grass from. You could actually get into a business and say, okay, it could even create more opportunities, because if you say desertification has ruined the lands in the north by which they cannot get grass for their cattle, go into the business of trying to get grass from wherever you could get. You could get from neighboring Nigeria Republic, you could get from southern Nigeria and feed your cattle. So this whole practice of, because it is my culture to move around with my cattle and everything, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense in 2025.
But you were talking about the government staying out of it, but the government have provided solutions like the National Livestock Transformation Plan.
Yes.
Do you think that those policies are being implemented? Can even the herders follow through in terms of policies and implementation?
Are they aware
Because
of
Rivers
these
State
policies?
doesn't have, they have an anti-open grazing policy.
Almost every state has an open grazing policy, especially in the Middle Belt and the South. The question is state capacity. Benue State has an anti-open grazing law. As a matter of fact, they try to implement it with two different vigilantes. One of them is the Benue Livestock Guard. They haven't really done it. Why? State capacity. We have weak state capacity in Nigeria. So you could talk about the NLTP from now to tomorrow. The question is, one, do they want to enforce it? Two, do they care about the problem? Three, if they cared about the problem well enough, do they have the capacity to enforce it? The herders know, the people who are causing this mayhem, especially, they know that the government does not have the capacity to enforce it. And even if the government wanted to, they don't trust in their capacity to enforce it. And which is why nobody really cares about what the government wants to do. And we have a current administration in Asurok that doesn't really care about security. Its only problem is the economy. So whenever we have all these security issues, just makes only passive statements and goes away with it. People have understood that the law of Nigeria right now is the law of the jungle, and they are taking matters into their own hands.
Speaking of taking matters into your own hands, I'm sorry, Ms. Zino, but let me just quickly come to Yahaya for this one. Mr. Yahaya, I have to ask you, right, the security implications of this, and I'm concerned whether you, if yourself and also stakeholders, herders or herdsmen or people who are in this business are worried about the tagline that is on them, which is, banditry, militia, the killings and the clashes between farmers and herdsmen. Do they come together to discuss these issues and to put a good front?
Well, let me answer some questions that the other speaker raised. One, that we are now in 2025, we cannot discuss something of maybe the beginning of Nigeria and 214 or whatever. In the first place, why the mistake we did in the judicial state, maybe our forefathers, whatever, or our traditional rulers, or our government before, or our colonial masters, they have made a mistake by providing a grazing at the beginning of the
we're really giving it time there to see if the networks will perhaps behave, but unfortunately, coming back to the studio here. But that was a good question. I hope we can get Mr. Ilyasu back so that he can respond to your question and also go on what he was trying to say regarding your comments. Right. However, there is something I wanted to pick out. Oh, we have Mr. Ilyasu back. Mr. Ilyasu, please continue. We lost you for a second, but please go ahead.
Okay. If people had maintained those grazing reserves, it is very easy now to say, okay, nobody should go out of those grazing reserves. You should maintain yourself in those grazing reserves. Well, nobody would have been in any farm. But the grazing reserves have been chopped away, which the government provides. The government has the land. Who owns the land? It's the government. It's the government that owns the land. The government has provided these grazing reserves from the borders of the north, extreme north, to the sea. So whatever I say is, whatever we do, please let us try, let us not add fire, add whatever to already, let us not confuse or we are here to solve a problem. We're not here to maybe instigate or whatever with people. What I'm trying to say in essence is, not as this one, it can be done. I'm of the opinion that we should stop open grazing. However, we cannot just stop open grazing at a go. One thing very careful, the security situation in Nigeria is already saturated. And like the speaker actually said, this government is taking, maybe is not taking security issues seriously. Especially myself, who comes from the north, which in my village, almost every week, people, 1, 2 people are killed. Every 1, 2 people are killed because of this problem now. So I must hit.
There's something that we haven't yet addressed one very critical issue, and it's an elephant. It's like the elephant in the room. Talking about security and the fact that most of these herders are armed. What is the reason for them being armed? Doesn't that exacerbate the situation where people mistake them for bandits? And I'm also going to throw that to Mr. McCarry here in the studio. But first, why are these herders armed?
Okay, and when I was young, that was in 1967, 68, so 69, 70, and mid-70s. The herders the herders, they used to move with their cutlasses and whatever. But now, when I was in the sometimes in late 80s, sorry, not 1984, 85, 86, I just realized that I met some herders around New, sometimes in 1985, 87. I was asking them, why are you carrying? So they are even carrying some gun guns. They say, because if we don't carry the gun guns, people are stealing our cows. So I just realized when I went back to at the same area, sometimes in 1990s, I think during Abacha or Mawangala regime or Seneca regime, I can't remember precisely. These same others are holding guns. I can tell you they are holding guns. They say, what I think what's happening? They say people are stealing our cow. People are killing us and they are stealing our cow. So I fear to defend ourselves with these guns. I say, this is terrible. Nigeria is going away. And I think I even wrote some letters somewhere somehow to the concerned security agencies that time. But I think nothing was done about it because maybe I don't know. But that one, we have to be very careful because these herders, they have, if you hear them, they are outside of the story. You realize that they are also being victimized. And let me tell everybody that it's not only herders or the Fulanis that have cattle. We should know this. I know there are some Igbo people and some tribes, sorry, I don't want to mention any others. There are some tribes that have cattle more than the Fulanis, whether in the south or in the north. The only people that can take care of those cows are the Fulanis. They are given these animals to go area because the other tribes, they are not used to this thing. So they feel they cannot do it, but let them give somebody, then pay him. And if by any mistake, any Fulani huntsman lose a cattle, the owner will just come as you know, you have sold it somewhere.
All right,
so these are some of the things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eliasu. Let's come back to the studio here with Mr. Makahari regarding the situation with the carrying of arms by these herders. Yeah. Doesn't that exacerbate the situation where they are mistaken for bandits, like I asked Mr. Eliasu? And within the law, are they allowed to actually bear these arms?
No, they're not, unless they're licensed. So one of the leading causes for the reason why they started carrying arms was because, to be fair to Mr. Eliasu, the herders were attacked. You understand? They were attacked. The question then becomes, where were they attacked? Is it in every part of the country or in just one particular place? From historical perspective, it was mostly in the northern part of the country where governance broke down, and then many parts of governance wasn't reaching many people. People were taken to crime and everything. So I was saying earlier at the beginning of this conversation that in the past we had traditional dispute mechanism where when it was purely a matter between a farmer who is aggrieved and a herder who committed a trespass, the traditional rulers mediated in the conflict, pay whatever you're supposed to pay and get on your way. But it became a problem where the people that were having problems with were not necessarily farmers, but bandits, people who were killing and stealing cattle. Now, if they went into a community and then they reported that their cattle was stolen, it was difficult for them. It was difficult for the community people to fish out who did it because some of the people who were carrying out the attacks on the herders are not even from the community. If they go to the police, they could not seek respite. Many people, many Fulanis, they lost their cattle as a result of this. This is where many of the problems in the Northwest started. As a result, they started carrying arms. And then it's not a question of, you asked earlier if they were licensed, if they are allowed to carry arms legally. Of course not. But if you have the gun license, if you've registered your guns and everything, at least by Nigerian law, you are allowed to carry. But the question is, many of them are they licensed? The answer is no. And then they had that mindset that we need to arm our herders because wherever we go, since the security situation in the country has devolved so badly that the state cannot provide security anymore, that we are going to get attacked. That mentality allowed them to encroach into people's farm, and then it became a case of impunity. And so the farmer in the south does not necessarily have to be antagonistic to the herder from the north for the herder to be that apprehensive enough to want to shoot. And because he knows that he's going to get away with it, he's going to do it. Because why move about, going to look for pasture when you could get into somebody's farm and then shoot the owner and graze as much as you can and walk away for free? So it became a case of impunity that was exacerbated by the Nigerian state's failure to be an impartial arbiter between an aggrieved party. And again, it brings me to the points I've been making earlier, weak state capacity. The state has been absent. It does not really live up to its responsibilities. As a result, people are actually carrying out the responsibilities of the state on the state's behalf.
And that means hiring vigilante groups such as Lukarawa and the rest. Anyway, gentlemen, this is how we're ending the show. I want to say thank you to you, Confidence Makari, Senior Security Analyst for SBM Intelligence, giving us a bit of insight there, and also to Mr. Yahaya Iliasu, there we go, for giving us insight there from the herdsman point of view. And to our reporters, Emmanuel Bagudu for bringing that report from Kano, and also to Biola Festus giving us that report as well from Rivers State with the farmers and the herders. Let's roll their reports. Here's where we close this curtain on this discussion, and afterwards there'll be plenty more. Stay with us. But first, Biola Festus's report.
Each till of the soil and each seed planted is back-breaking work, with every step marked by the drop of a sweat. Farmers in Izuoma community in Oyigbo local government area of Rivers State toil tirelessly throughout the year, only to harvest nothing, as their crops are repeatedly destroyed by suspected herdsmen. According to them, armed herdsmen have found their farmlands suitable for grazing and their crops food for the cattle.
Now God go save us, so we dey pray, we dey beg government, make them come, come rescue us, help us for food and herdsmen, They need agree us to rest, they need agree us to eat. When we don't farm like this, keep them go come chop. Then when we talk, them go use gun, they pursue us. Then go tell us say that the country na their own, the land say na their land.
So they carry the nama buruburu, more than thousands of it. So they meet me by unexpected in the farm there. I know even I just they look whether na bush them they carry them come, they come pursue the nama, they come surround me there. So I carry only my phone, carry my clothes. I run away.
Upon our arrival at the hundreds of acres farm, the suspected herders were nowhere to be seen, but the unmistaken trails of cattle footprints and droppings told a clear story. Meanwhile, harvest came early, not because the fields were ready, but for the fears that the produce would be devoured by cows.
Now, madam, finish me, they say man no chop. I mean, this is a woman be comfortable. Now, when I come, I forgot to you. I go tell other person. This a thing I don't come out in the center. How can woman be come out this cassava like this? Leave her like this, come out. Come out, oh yeah, finish yet, they go that side. Oh, Jesus. Only God now go save us from this situation like this. What's me, I go chop with my children, now they talk.
In Nigeria, open grazing prohibition laws are enacted at the state level, granting individual states the autonomy to either permit or ban open grazing within their territories. In Rivers State, the anti-open grazing law was enacted in 2021, clearly stating that open grazing is not allowed anywhere within the state. Nevertheless, the farmers say these egregious acts are committed with impunity.
If you are not agreeing, make we talk to them. If you still, the one we talk to them, and they should go on that Tuesday. I think maybe they don't shoot us, finish. I don't know, say I go still there alive in the land of the living. I go save me. Mr. President, help us, may we feed our children. Nigeria hard. They say make we farm. Now we don't enter farm. Fulani herdsmen not make we bring out our cassava, our crops.
Mine are fast, so because no one nama board there now. Before my man that guy furu ebufuta de ebe lazia. Bamhunu ngago futa de ebe. Osa bam loko. Ya bam ebe pa.
In the last 2 years, these farmers have not had harvests commensurate to what they have sown. Furthermore, their men become vulnerable to violent attacks, while the women have been subjected to physical assaults. As a result, women have been forced to wear multiple layers of clothing to the farm, despite Nigeria's never wintry climate.
You will be woman. See as I did now, wear trousers, wear tights, I wear other ones inside. Because if in the sea only you inside bush, then go rape you.
Nothing what they happen inside bush now. So now make if we they go, we they keep ourselves well. He go dead normally and he go dead inside bush. Make any Fulani or any mumu come near you. Now make women now with their vest.
Witnessing her parents' struggles, this teenage aspiring farmer is beginning to question the future of agriculture in Nigeria.
I love farming because I normally help my mom in farming. These things now these people are doing, me myself, I don't know what to do because I said in future I want to be a farmer, like I want to invest in farming, but this thing now that I do, I don't know what else to do.
Izuoma farmers typically sell their produce at the Oyigbo main market, one of the most affordable markets in Rivers State. However, recent attacks on farmers have made prices soar.
I buy farm this year, 30,000. Then I cut the farm, 25,000, one plot. Then digging, the people where they dig them 35,000. I buy okra, 1 cup of okra is 10,000. Then stand, I don't buy almost 40,000 naira stand. As older, if I stand up and I go see, say I no get leg. But due to how Nigeria then I dey manage myself. After all these things, Fulani people will enter. They will enter, they will beg for water, we will give them. After it don't go back, they will come and finish everything.
The chairman of the Oyigbo Farmers Association attributes the recent surge in attacks by suspected herdsmen to the prevailing political instability in the state.
They started on 2023. When the information came, we reported to the area command, the DP of our farm, Commissioner of Police, and they wrote a letter to governor. The governor ordered them to invade the bush and chase them away. Reaching 2024, they came back again. Governor speak on air, on social media, that he gave them 21 days to leave. They see that the governor who chased them, who cited the committee, 12-man committee, to look into the matter, is no more there. They now use opportunities to come back to destroy, to do many activities in the area.
These farmers in Izuoma community in Oyigbo local government area of Rivers State have now become like strangers in their own lands. Going to the farm has become a very heavy chore for them for the fear of being attacked by suspected Fulani herdsmen whom they said have been attacking them for the past 2 years. With the rising inflation rate in food prices in Nigeria, what then becomes the future of the country? In Izuoma, for News Central, Biola Festus.
And you're welcome back. Let's get started, shall we? And this time to turn the spotlight on a troubling revelation that's sending shockwaves across the African diaspora, particularly among Nigerians. The United Kingdom has just published a list of unclaimed estates belonging to deceased individuals who died without a will, and at least 58 of them are Nigerians. These are properties, pensions, and assets that could be worth millions, now at risk of being permanently forfeited to the British Crown if not claimed by next of kin. The implications are profound, not just financially, but emotionally and culturally.
Yes, indeed. Question is, are we facing a crisis of estate planning within the diaspora? What does this mean for families back home? And what role can government agencies like the Nigerians and Diaspora Commission, NITCOM, play in reclaiming these lost legacies? Well, we'll be unpacking all that and more with our guests this morning. First off, we are going to be having Tosin Oyedira, a journalist who has been tracking reactions from within Nigeria regarding these issues, and also Blessing Tifashe, an international journalist based in the UK following diaspora affairs. In the studio here with us, we have Mr. Olukayode Okenla. He is partner Simon Bethel's solicitors. You're welcome in the studio, sir.
Welcome, sir.
And welcome to our guests via Zoom.
Welcome. Let me start with you, Mr. Tosin Oyedira. We understand that you broke the news here in Nigeria. The story of Nigerians losing unclaimed estates in the UK has sparked quite a number of reactions. Just tell us the beginning of the story and what's really at play here. What's at stake?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Yes, I was suffering. Can you hear me, please?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, good morning. It's a routine that I do check the UK website, and that very day I was checking the website, and I saw that it has been updated. But truly, about 2-3 years ago, I was using the same UK government website, and it was then, I think around 2022, that I discovered that every day there is a list, a bona vacantia list, that is ownerless goods, properties, assets, estates, even pensions and the likes that are unclaimed. So in 2022, I discovered that there is this particular record called the bona vacantia that is kept under the Treasure Solicitor Department, Treasure Solicitor's Office rather. And I discovered that there is this list that is kept, and it is updated every day. The list is updated every day, and it's as a result of people who die intestate without leaving a will or a proper documentation that, oh, this is a next of kin that can claim anything that is mine, that is my asset, or their asset rather, their asset, their wealth, or anything. So I've been keeping a very close eye on it since 2022, and I didn't report anything about it in 2023, 2024. Not until was it last month or earlier this month, I stumbled upon it again, and I felt that, oh, let me report this again, owing to the fact that in recent times there were reports of Nigerians who died at their workplace, or Nigerians who died at their homes. And I was wondering, what if these people who died at their workplace, people who died after doing their shift or when they return home, what if they die and they do not have a will? This means that this number of Nigerians will add up to those who are already tagged as bona vacantia, whose properties and assets are already tagged as bona vacantia. And that is what actually prompted me that very day to do the story, and what the roles that their families, the roles that the government and the likes can do to ensure that these properties do not actually become totally forgone, that it does not become a property of the crown. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tessin. In the studio here with us. Mr. Okinla, I'm hoping that you can give us an idea of the processes for immigrants to actually acquire property outside of the country, especially in this case, the UK.
Okay, first and foremost, let me give you this scenario. Nigerians traveled a lot to the UK for various reasons. You could recall in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, till today. So at every point in time, you may recall several years ago, there were a lot of Nigerian companies who were operating, Nigerian banks operating in the UK. The likes of Nigerian companies, the likes of Odua, the likes of very high net worth Nigerian companies operating in the UK. So there's a lot of traffic of Nigerians to United Kingdom, either as students, as business men and women, as partners for business collaborations, and so many and so forth. So there are different scenarios. So you have this situation wherein either assets, bank accounts, shares, investment units, and all sorts of things have been acquired by Nigerians in the UK. And they run into several millions of pounds and everything. So the problem you now have is, one, some people don't have a will. Some people live a recluse life. You understand? They get themselves isolated. Some people also, for various reasons as well, maybe because of immigration status have actually acquired some of these properties when they have not regularized their papers. And some have actually returned back to Nigeria. Some have died. Some have relocated back to Nigeria. Some have died. Some have, for various reasons, cannot get back to the UK. So you have all these abandoned properties. And what government does, because there's a transparency framework. Financial institutions in the UK, upon receipt of death of anyone, upon also local councils, upon receipt of certain information, for example, if you have a property that have not been used for quite some time, left fallow, you understand, after investigation, they will notify the government agencies. And of course, they will act on that. Pension funds and so many things. So in cases, what has happened here, basically because people have not claimed some of these. For example, maybe there is no next of kin. Nobody has actually come forward to claim some of these properties. So you have what we refer to as a government legal department called the Treasury Solicitors. And under that division, there is what you have the Bona Vacentia division. So obviously what it means basically is the government that takes over some of these assets and find a way. Unless you still have years to claim within 30 years. You understand? But you need to show your link, your nexus to those properties.
Okay.
For immigrants, it was easier in those days for Nigerians to open a bank account. So you could just imagine multiple bank accounts in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s. Some of them are lying dormant. Although you have what we refer to dormant asset schemes or refund claims, wherein when an asset becomes, for example, a bank account becomes so dormant, you understand, it triggers some sort of, scheme wherein those dormant assets are given to a company called Refund Limited or whatsoever. So there are multiples of such assets in the UK by Nigerians.
I've got more questions, but I'll reserve it. Jesus, please.
Yeah, Ms. Tifashe, I have to ask you, right? I was talking to Mr. Kaide here just outside before we started this interview, and I was saying that if there's one thing that the British is known for is bureaucracy, and also that's where we got our ties from, and because of our past ties to Britain as well, we also have that bureaucracy there and that red taping. And so I have to ask you about the diaspora, if the bureaucracy and the red taping is one of the reasons why we're seeing this unclaimed estates and this lack of documentation and wills.
I think it's more of a case of accountability and transparency on the side of the UK government, because the government could have easily denied or just turned a blind eye to all of these assets, or probably just giving them to charity. But they've come out and they've given the legal department, the government in the UK has a legal department called the Bona Vacentia Division, popularly known here as the BVD. So this division of the government is known to administer estate properties or houses owned by individuals who have died without a will and without blood relatives. Now there's a formula for this actually. It's not just, it doesn't just go directly to the government when the person dies without a will. So there's a list of persons who can come forward to claim ownership or entitlement to these properties, not just anyone, not just a friend. So the first is probably the husband or the wife, a civil partner, children, mother or father, brothers or sisters, half brothers or sisters, grandparents, uncles and aunts, and half uncles or aunts. So these people, wherever they are, can come forward to claim entitlement to these properties when someone dies without a will here. So I think it's more of a case of accountability from the government, because this body, the DVD, actually provides as much genealogical information as possible on the site. And like your first Justice State said, it is updated every single working day. And the last update was actually on the 4th of April. So it's pretty recent and pretty much updated regularly. Any missing things or any missing column you see there, trust me, the government does not have that information. So they've done their due diligence to make as much findings as they can
and they are providing this list. Generally, any single person can go on gov.uk and download this list, so you can see your name is there, not your name. If you're a relative, you've got a lot of relatives is there, and you know that you're actually on the entitlement, you are the entitled relative, you can come forward, lay things, provide documents, necessary documents, and claim your entitlement.
I
think it's not a case of accountability and transparency from the UK government.
Speaking of accountability from the British government and transparency, all of these persons that have been listed that have unclaimed estates, don't they have bank accounts? Because I know when you're opening details, whether it's your health insurance or your bank accounts or whatever it is, there's always a contact or emergency contact there. Shouldn't they be looking at those information to be able to reach out? Because there are persons who leave villages that don't have access, not really don't have access to internet, but they're not aware, and they go all the way. Because there are Nigerians that have left to the diaspora and have cut ties with their families completely. What happens to those persons? I'm going to throw that question to Tosin.
Thank you very much. To answer that, what is obtainable in the UK? There is proper documentation over there. And there is they have the death and bereavement certificate, and they keep records of death, and not just only death, they also keep records of death. Now, to answer your question, in some cases or in some scenarios, some of these properties are not individually owned. Some of these properties are not individually owned. Some of these properties are jointly owned. In some cases, it could be the husband and the wife. And the thing about it is that if at the point of death, it is just one of the two parties or multiple parties who own the property that dies, then if the other party are unaware of what to do, if they are unaware of what to do and what role to play immediately to make sure that there is this form that is called the deceased joint proprietorship form, and that is in the case of even one of the proprietors or even one of the owner dies. This DJP form has to be filled and updated. This DJP form has to be filled and updated. In some cases, I would say maybe lack of awareness or ignorance of the UK laws might be an affecting factor. And we've had it worse, that in some cases the two joint owners, in some cases may die together. Let's imagine a man and a woman who dies in a car crash. If the two joint owners die together, or if the two joint owners, if the other surviving owner died within a short span to the other party's death, and they've been unable, or they are unable to perfect. They are unable to perfect this DJP ownership form. They are unable to shift the ownership from the deceased to the one who is alive. Then it becomes a problem. So I think this is one of the key factors to look into. So ownership, lack of ignorance of the UK law, I think is a very serious factor. And there are other things, but let me keep it at that for now.
Right.
Ms. Okenla, I'd like to shift your attention to something called proceeds of crime. I've got two instances I'd like to describe here. One of them is personal. My name is Maziakwono Appeal. It's shortened to Mazino because it's difficult for most people to pronounce.
Maziakwono.
Thank you, Judith. Good work. But mostly for people who are foreign, it's difficult. So I may need to change my name to Mazino just so it is pronounceable by foreigners. In the course of doing this, some of the assets that I might acquire might go with this name, Mazino Appeal. Now, when that happens, I have actually fallen under this legislation that, well, it's called proceeds of crime, where my true identity does not represent on the assets, documents for the assets. Yeah. Then there's also proceeds of crime when it comes to immigrants acquiring assets before they are legalized. What happens in these cases when these people pass on?
Okay, first and foremost, let's get the issue of the proceeds of crime. Issue like provenance of funds to get properties, committing fraud to get properties, giving false representations to get properties, to acquire assets, or to acquire identity. So obviously, when you look at the scope of what we refer to the mechanism for proceeds of crime, is big, it's quite very complex. Illegal funds from Nigeria used to acquire assets or whatsoever. But you may, for example, you've given a scenario. When you acquire a property, you must have an identity to acquire a property. Obviously, some may have acquired properties in the name, in analysis whatsoever. Exactly. Some may have acquired properties when they have no status, as at that time they've acquired properties. Some may have acquired properties through third parties because they don't want people to know that they have these assets, public officials in government whatsoever. So you have different scenarios when it comes to proceeds of crimes. But main issue is provenance of funds. You know, at every stage, when you want to acquire properties or you want to acquire assets, you understand, the issue of money laundering is now much more emphasized. Now, you may have a scenario where, as at the time you acquire a property, you do not have a status. So you've acquired a property in a name that you have absorbed for purposes of using somebody's identity or just creating an identity to acquire those assets as at the time. It's a very complex situation, but I think there are legal ways, you understand. So far you can prove that the provenance of funds, you can change your name, you can do deed of change name and whatsoever. And then, but one thing that is quite very, very important, at every point in time, you must make sure that you seek legal advice or you seek professional advice. You update your assets whatsoever. Yes, I can give you different scenarios. There are people who were Nigerians, who maybe acquired properties and they were deported, maybe for fraud, for drugs, whatsoever. So you have different scenarios like that. You have people who have actually also, at one time or other, they've acquired properties. They live a very, I recalled many years ago of a Nigerian who came in the UK when in the 60s, legally acquired nice property in West London, acquired a lot of shares, a lot of investment units, but cut himself away from the family, you understand? And I think in the course of that, when he came into the UK, I think as he was working with the railway, British Railway, and as at that time, so I think they had to contact the next of kin, and it was quite very difficult to contact the next of kin in Nigeria. You could see a Nigerian who came in before independence, and he has done very well for himself. So they were able to contact with his sister who have actually died. Oh. You understand? So basically, the children of his sister got in touch, and you know. So now coming to your question, it's a very complex situation. You know, it's a very complex situation. But I feel, number one, but right now, people are now beginning to get aware. So
it's a case of awareness currently.
Yes, number one. And for cultural issues too as well. Some people don't want to tell people where their assets are and whatsoever. So it's and some people, because of the divorce whatsoever, you want to make sure that you hide your assets whatsoever. So there's a lot of scenarios. Okay. Public officials, people, and I've also seen scenarios where someone who has acquired one or two things in the UK came to Nigeria, died. Maybe he's worked so hard so much and he died in Nigeria, and he doesn't have any relative in the UK. You understand? So you have different scenarios like that. Okay. But there's always a framework for how best to go about it. And I always tell people, seek professional advice. And at every point in time, make sure you do your will. Make sure that you have make sure that you have information that you can give to trusted relatives about properties that you have acquired.
All right. I could have a relative, only that it could be like 3 times removed, if you think about it.
Oh, the story of the African prince there.
Oh, yes, it is. It's just one of them. But Ms. Tifashe, before we wrap up this discussion, I'd like to come to you. And by the way, one of our producers says you look a lot like one of our reporters here, one of our correspondents here, and that's Omolade. There we go. You look exactly like her. And then looking at you now, I see it. I kind of see it. I kind of see it with the bulb. But Mr. Tosin, let me just ask you, right? You are an international journalist covering diaspora issues. The numbers keep growing till, as of yesterday, and even till today, the numbers will continue to grow, not just in Nigeria, not just for affecting Nigerians, but also Africa at large. Let's talk about the diaspora issue and how we can both connect, because what we see here is a disconnect from Africans and diaspora and here in Nigeria, in Africa, on the continent. How can we connect so we can, have our collective access to our estates or, assets? There we go.
Right. I think first up, I'll just touch quickly on what you mentioned earlier about emergency contact. I just wanted to clarify something about that. I'm not dispelling what Tosin said earlier, but just to clarify it a bit more. So if the UK government has brought this list up or this report out of themselves, they won't put under any pressure, and they've given a 30-year framework, a 30-year time frame for persons to come forward and claim this exit. I think they should be uploaded for this sort of transparency. I'm yet to see any other country, maybe the United States, I don't know, that would do something like this and leave this kind of a gap for people to come forward and claim this property. So it's not them trying to see millions of properties that do not belong to them. It's them trying to administer this property to the rightful owners or rightful entitled relatives. Now, about what you're saying, right here, there are private companies called genealogists, actually, who work independent of the DVD, so they could contact you in Nigeria or whatever country there's anyone affected, and according to the list, to say, oh, your name is on social list, and your emergency contact has been exhausted. So the first point would be, even as much as someone thinking, so I remember a couple of years ago when I thinking in the shopping mall, the next thing I saw when I opened my eyes was my husband standing beside me. So, and that's because he is my emergency contact. Do you know what I mean? Not a talk of, God forbid, someone dying. So the first thing they would do is to contact or to search for your emergency contact. So they've done all of that before they've done that and even much more, trying to trace whoever might be entitled before putting these names on the list. So these companies, like going back to the genealogists now, would go to contact this person because they want to make profit. They're going to ask for a share. They're going to ask for a percentage. They're not working for the government. They're trying to work for you to say your name looks like a relative of yours has passed and has left physical property right here in the UK. You want to come forward and provide physical documents. You know how to. They lead you and guide whoever is involved to provide necessary documents to claim these properties. And the government is actually encouraging the use of these private companies. And so I think that's the best thing they can do, to do their due diligence, provide a list, make it secular, anyone can download and view this list. I think it's now the whole of the Nigerian government and every other government who have names on these lists to popularize the names, make it, as popular as possible, make it in all the villages, maybe in newspapers, and whatever means you have. If they've done their own work here to provide this list, it's left with these African governments or whichever country is involved to say, is this you? Are you a relative of this person who has died in such a country? You might need to go claim money over there, and probably help those don't have the whereabouts to go for it, to provide the documents and go for the claim.
All right.
Well, I must say thank you to our guest today, to Mrs. There we go, Mrs. Tosin, Mrs. Blessings Tifashe, and there's also, of course, Mr. Tosin Oyediran, who is the local journalist who broke this news, and also to our guest here in the studio, Mr. Kayode Okenyola, a legal practitioner. Thank you, gentlemen and lady. It's close the curtains, go check the list and also ask your family. This is when you need to get records. I know family 3 removed is on that list. I just have to go and trace my roots. But thank you again for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And I'm that African prince they've been looking for. Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome back. Our final discussion for a Saturday edition here on Breakfast Extra. April 2nd was World Autism Awareness Day. And this year's theme is about advancing neurodiversity and breaking the stereotypes that have for so long shaped how we perceive autism. Now, autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is not an illness or a tragedy. It's a different way of experiencing the world. But for many individuals on the spectrum and their families, the journey is still marked by stigma, misunderstanding, and also lack of access to the right resources.
And so this morning, we're taking time to celebrate autistic voices, amplify the stories of advocacy, and understand how early intervention and inclusive education can make a world of difference. And so joining us to do that is first a parent and the founder of Haven Autism, and that is Esther Sule Okeogo. She's a proud mother of a brilliant 16-year-old boy, who's on the autism spectrum, is nonverbal, by the way, but also he is an advocate who advocates through his art, and that is Aziza Okeogo. We're also being joined here in the studio by Helen Oshikoya. She's an early intervention specialist and international behavior consultant who has spent over a decade working across Africa and the diaspora to build responsive, evidence-based support for systems for children on this spectrum. So altogether, I must say thank you so much for joining us, because we're going to be unpacking what is it about, neurodiversity and so much more. So Miss Esther and also Helen, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Judith, you want to start?
I'm very excited. Let me first of all say hello to Aziza. I've seen all of your art. We're going to play it on here. I know this all of his art and everything else. He's an art advocate, but also
he says thank you.
Thank you, and also to Mommy as well. You have been an active voice in the autism advocacy space for years now. So tell us about your journey, what inspired Haven for Autism, and how has your personal experience as a parent shaped your mission?
So Ziza got diagnosed when he was 4. As you know, it's a difficult process from getting a diagnosis. From one, we noticed that there was something different about him to getting a diagnosis, navigating the healthcare system. A lot of medical personnel didn't even understand what we were talking about. They just felt like I was just a parent that was just unnecessarily worried. But we didn't relent in our efforts. We needed answers, and in seeking those answers, we had a lot of difficulties and all that. So he got diagnosed, like I said, at 4, and then with that just came a lot of things. We just knew that we had to have early intervention, which we were told would determine whether you had positive outcomes or not. And even in trying to get him diagnosed and just seeking to understand what it was, because 16 years ago, I'd never heard of autism. It's not like today. Nobody just knew anything about autism, so I got a lot of pushback from people. I don't know, culturally here, it's like we have an aversion to mental health issues or something. And then you rightly mentioned the stigma surrounding autism as well. So nobody wanted to talk about it. And I just realized that as a parent, it was my duty to advocate for my child. And I just realized that we needed to get to a point where we were comfortable enough to talk about it, So early as I think 2 years or so, we noticed that Ziza had a flair for art. He's obviously nonverbal, so his way of expressing himself was through art. And we quickly realized that he had sort of like an eidetic memory, which means he was just able to see things and just, soak it up and then bring it, draw it or whatever, and just get it right. So it was like he was just taking pictures in his brain or something. And then, the idea just came to us, why not use the arts to, start these conversations, because it's something that people are uncomfortable with. They don't want to talk about it. You talk about autism and nobody's really interested, but people would notice if it was something interesting, for instance. So I thought, yeah, he's good with art. We started to use his Instagram page at Eidetic Boy and posting pictures. And then, we started having conversations. People were just engaging and they were like, oh, wow, this is these drawings are done by someone with autism. So it's not totally a lost cause, with the right resources, with the right intervention, they're actually able to have some fulfilling lives and live independently as well. And, even for some have finished school, have been able to get an education. Some, maybe like Ziza, not necessarily an education, but grow, in terms of his art. He's able to also play music by ear. So he's self-taught. He just put him in front of a piano. He just listens to a song or something. He's able to figure out the keys and just play. Same thing with art as well. But we were able to get him some support to get him to where he is now, where we're also having yearly exhibitions and all for autism awareness, because we wanted to get to a place where people notice, so that we're promoting awareness, understanding of our cause, and also educating people as well. And interestingly, it's not just for the public out there. I mean, in my journey, I came to realize that even parents who have children on the spectrum haven't come to a place of acceptance. So we just knew that we needed to amplify our voices, let our experiences be shared, let our stories be told. And I think we're doing a good job for the most part. If you are in the autism space, you would notice that almost all the activities, we're having autism walks. This is April, so a lot of things are going on in Nigeria right now.
Esther, just a second, Esther, I'm hoping you can hear us. I'm trying to get your attention, Esther. So, you are indeed doing a great work, but I'd like to also talk to Helen, who's with us here in the studio. But I just wanted to confirm, you did say that he draws from memory and plays by ear, yes?
Yes.
Fantastic, that's beautiful. Helen, you're here with us in the studio. I want to ask you what role early intervention could have played in Ziza's case and could play in other people's experience. Early intervention, and then we touch on stigma after. But first off, early intervention, how does that help?
The thing about it is that everybody says early intervention is the key, but they actually don't know what the key is. So that key is preventive. So every child that ends up having autism, it all starts off as a delay. A child is not born with autism. It is progressively a delay that has escalated to where it is now. So early intervention is actually screening your children, screening them to make sure that they don't have symptoms of autism.
But at what age?
You can actually start screening for autism at 12 months.
12 months?
12 to 18 months.
That's about a year old.
Yes, 12 to 18 months, because that's the time you start seeing the signs. But a lot of parents don't see the signs. They only see the effect. So they say, my child isn't talking, my child isn't socializing, my child isn't... Those are the pervasive parts of what those early symptoms really are. So early intervention is basically screening your children, screening particularly for autism.
And is that the key?
That's the key.
That's the key.
So that intervention can take place at that immediate point and not when the autism has actually become apparent.
So are you saying it's progressive autism?
Yes, it is. It evolves.
It evolves.
It evolves. So it goes from a delay, continues and continues until it gets to where it is.
There are parents that, one of the things I was reading a report, and many parents are continually complaining that their children are now experiencing speech delay in children. Is that also somewhat of leaning to autism, or that's a completely different conversation entirely?
The truth is that there's so many things that that are part of what autism is. So basically, at the point in time when the child is not talking, that is where you start getting worried. Talking doesn't mean he's going to have autism, but talking is a red flag towards possibility of having autism.
Gotcha.
I spoke about stigma from earlier. A stigma is very unique in these cases because it doesn't just come from outside, it's also from inside out. And I'll explain. People might see families who are dealing with this as, okay, we don't want to talk about it. We just go around it each time we are experiencing meeting someone with that situation. And then from the inside out, people don't want to expose family members sometimes who have autism because I don't know why. So how can families deal with these stigmas, whether inward out or outward in?
So the first thing is acceptance. So you need to accept that your child is different, and you can only be the advocate for your own child. She can't advocate for my child because she cannot love my child more than I love my child.
Oh, you'll be very surprised.
So, so the point really is that if you accept there's something wrong, then you're able to educate people around you to let them know something is wrong, but I need you to help me to find out what is wrong and how I can deal with it. So the stigmatization is really as a result of what we as individuals want, and as far as we are ready to go to make sure that other people accept us.
All right. Let me come to you, Esther, and talk about inclusion, all right? Inclusivity, as we discuss, autism and just the awareness of it, and neurodiversity. Ziza is 16 years old, and sooner or later, as time passes, he grows older and will become an adult. And being nonverbal, is that a concern for you, inclusion and, integrating into society, having friends, marriage, the future, the societal norms that is expected of a young man? How do you play it, and how do you advocate for inclusion for his case?
Most definitely. That's the parents' worst fear. With me, because I've watched him. I know that there's certain limitations, and there's so much that we can do. Right now, we're on initially we're focused on maybe wanting to get him to be like anybody else. That is, complete his academics and then maybe find a job or something. Over time, I've come to realize that we're not going to do that. So now our focus is getting him to be able to live independently. And again, back to advocacy, you're talking about inclusion. You can't have inclusion in a society where people don't understand, where they are not educated about what it is. And, if people just buying into creating, initiatives or something where autistic individuals are included. For now, for instance, as he has his strengths, which is art and music, one of the worries is how do we get him into society to function as an individual who's artistic, who has a musical talent? Are there places that would, for instance, in Nigeria now, employ somebody like him? It's a bit difficult, really. I don't think there's an answer. The thing is, that is why we do what we do. I continue to just educate and say, he may be non-verbal, for instance, but he has skills and he should be able to function. In this day and age, especially since COVID, people working remotely and so there are autistic individuals who are good with a computer, they are good with IT, they may not necessarily speak, but they have skills in that area. Ziza can have exhibitions, sell his paintings, and not be limited by the fact that he has autism, So right. The more we engage people, the more we educate, I think it fosters for a society where there's inclusion, where there are resources, where we're able to integrate them into society and get them to also live a functional life and also make their own contributions to society as a whole.
Just a second for the sake of
time.
It is a worry.
Let's quickly just bring this. Let's bring this to fore as we're talking about discrimination and stigmatization and inclusion. In January of 2019, the then President Muhammadu Buhari, he enacted and signed into law the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act, which is to criminalize discrimination based on disability and establishing a national commission for persons with disability to promote inclusivity and well-being. Does your how far has this enactment gone in sort of inclusion? Have they done well? And how can, you know, CSOs like yourself or organizations like yourself and also Mr. Shikoya just, you know, collaborate to better bring to fore the issues that, you know, autistic children face, especially those on the spectrum, whether nonverbal or alike, to sort of push forward inclusion and eradicate discrimination and stigma? Very quickly, because we're pressed for time.
I think we're for the most part, I think, like I said, parents, professionals like Ms. Helen are, you know, have been collaborating for a while. I'm glad that you mentioned that, you know, the president has put something in place. I think the issues that we have majorly are whether they are being implemented. So there are policies on paper. I mean, there are documents that are written, but do we have implementation? That is the actual problem. And I think that we need, you know, we need to come together as a whole. I'm talking about the autism space now, non-governmental organizations, parents, advocates, people living with autism. We need to come together and push for better policies. It's not just having policies, but actually putting them in practice. For instance, we're talking about discrimination and, you know, of people living with autism. How many schools actually are able to include people with autism? They just don't have the resources, and they're just not able to.
Cut you short,
so I think that, yes, I think we need to revisit this issue and have proper conversations, to be honest.
All right, then, Esther. Thank you.
Ms. Helen, you have the floor, very quickly.
I think the challenge is that, the truth is that a lot of collaboration is based on individual interest. So basically, if I feel I want to do something in my space, I don't need to invite you into this space. And we've been trying to collaborate with so many things, you know, so many ventures and organizations. But you see, the point is that if the government themselves don't enforce the policies that they bring out, it's going to be difficult for people to collaborate. So I might feel to myself that I don't want X happening in schools, but you are benefiting from that X being in school. So it's the government that's supposed to sit down and say, all stakeholders, we don't want anymore, and then I don't have a choice. I have to either do it or the person doing it has to stop.
Alignment.
It's alignment. And the only thing, as I said, you know, in a family, it's the head. So if the government doesn't come in and make sure these stakeholders do what they're supposed to do and enforce it, we're still going to be, 16 years are going on. Autism, it didn't come yesterday, but we're still where we are.
Yep, that is true.
Yes.
I must say thank you. Thank you so much, Helen Oshikoya, just for taking our time and being here. Appreciate you.
Very much.
And also to Ziza Okeogo for joining us as well.
Thank you very much, Ziza. We appreciate
Ziza.
that you supported Mommy through
Thank
all of
you
this.
for having
And we
us.
love your art, Ziza. That was a beautiful horse we saw you drawing there. Now I'm going to go follow you. Please, Mommy, what's his handle again?
It's at Eidetic Boy. That's EIDETIC Boy on Instagram.
I'm definitely following after
on,
this.
TikTok and
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies, and thank you very much, Ziza.